Susan Miller stood at the big window and looked out at the huge ship. She had worked for this moment her whole life. The ship was called the EDF Leviathan. It was Earth's first star destroyer. It was so big that it made the space station around. It looked small. Susan remembered all the people who said she couldn't do it. They said a farm girl from Ohio would never become a space captain. They were wrong. Now she was here, about to be second in command on the biggest ship humans had ever built. The room was cold. That was normal for the moon base. Susan pulled her blue uniform jacket tighter. The Earth Defense Force logo on her chest shined under the bright lights. She checked her watch. The ship would launch tomorrow. After 10 years of building, the Leviathan would finally leave Earth. "Beautiful, isn't she?" a deep voice said behind her. Susan turned and saw Admiral Frank Johnson. He was tall with gray hair and dark skin. His uniform had many medals on it. He had been her teacher at the Space Academy. Now he was her boss, and the man who got the money to build the Leviathan. "Yes, sir," Susan said. "She's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." The Admiral stood next to her. They both looked at the giant ship through the window. It was black and silver, with the Earth flag on its side. It had huge guns and engines that glowed blue. 10 years, Johnson said. 10 years of work. So many people said we were wasting time and money. They said space is empty and silent. They said we don't need a warship. "And what do you think, sir?" Susan asked. She knew the answer but wanted to hear him say it. Johnson smiled a little. "I think the universe is a big place. I think it would be strange if we were alone. And I think it's better to be ready than sorry." Susan nodded. She thought the same thing. Space seemed empty and quiet. But that didn't mean nothing was out there. It might just mean no one was talking. Or maybe no one was talking to humans. "Get some sleep, Captain Miller," Johnson said. "Tomorrow is a big day." "Yes, sir," Susan said. She gave him a salute and left the room. She walked down the long hallway of the moon base. People moved out of her way. Everyone knew who she was. She was going to be on the Leviathan. The halls were busy with workers and soldiers getting ready for tomorrow. When Susan got to her room, she sat on her bed. She looked at the picture of her parents. They had a farm in Ohio. They didn't understand why their daughter wanted to go to space. But they were proud of her anyway. Susan tried to sleep but couldn't. She was too excited. She got up and looked at her computer. She wanted to check the ship's plans one more time. She knew them by heart, but it made her feel better. The Leviathan had new engines that could bend space. It could go faster than light. It could reach the edge of the solar system in minutes. It had big guns that could destroy an asteroid. It had room for 5,000 people. It had smaller ships inside it that could fight or explore. Susan finally fell asleep, thinking about all the places the ship could go. In the morning, Susan put on her best uniform. She took the elevator down to the shuttle bay. A small ship was waiting to take her to the Leviathan. When she got on board the big ship, everything was new and clean. The halls were wide. The air smelled fresh. Crew members ran around getting ready. They all stopped to salute her as she walked by. "Captain on the bridge," someone shouted when she entered the main control room. Captain Nathan Lewis turned and smiled. He was older than Susan, with light brown hair and a friendly face. "Welcome aboard, XO," he said. XO meant executive officer. That was Susan's job. She was second in command. "Thank you, sir," Susan said. "It's an honor." The bridge was big with many screens and control panels. Large windows showed the space outside. Earth was a blue ball in the distance. The moon was right below them. "All systems check out," said the ship's engineer, a man named Alan Green. "We're ready when you are, Captain." Lewis nodded and sat in the big chair in the middle of the bridge. Susan took her seat next to him. "This is Captain Lewis of the EDF Leviathan," he said into the radio. "Requesting permission to depart." Admiral Johnson's voice came through the speakers. "Permission granted, Leviathan. Make us proud." "Yes, sir," Lewis said. He turned to the pilot, a woman named Olivia Wright. "Take us out, Lieutenant, nice and slow." "Yes, sir," Wright said. Her hands moved over the controls. The huge ship began to move away from the moon base. It was so big that it seemed to move very slowly, but it was actually going thousands of miles per hour. As they moved away, Susan could see the whole Earth. It looked small and fragile from here. Set course for Mars, Lewis said. Let's see what this ship can do. The ship turned and its engines glowed brighter. It moved faster and faster. No one on the bridge noticed the small light on a control panel. It showed that something far away had noticed them. A signal that didn't come from Earth had passed through the ship's computers. They weren't alone after all. As the Leviathan passed the moon, its engines started to hum louder. The ship shook a little. Normal for first launch, Green said. The engines are just warming up. Susan checked her screen. Everything looked good. The ship was working perfectly. Sir, Wright said, we're ready for full speed. Lewis smiled. Let's show them what the Leviathan can do. Full power to engines. The blue glow from the engines got brighter. Outside the windows, the stars seemed to stretch. We're now the fastest human ship ever built, Green said with pride in his voice. Everyone on the bridge smiled. They had worked so hard for this moment. Sir, said the communications officer, a woman named Kimberly West. I'm picking up a strange signal. What kind of signal? Lewis asked. I don't know, West said. It's not one of ours. It's coming from... I can't tell where it's coming from. Susan stood up and walked to West's station. She looked at the screen. The signal was like nothing she had ever seen before. Record it, Susan said. We'll study it later. West nodded, but she looked worried. It almost seems like it's responding to us. Susan and Lewis looked at each other. The same thought was in both their minds. Maybe they weren't alone in space after all. Continue on course, Lewis said after a moment. But keep monitoring that signal. Susan went back to her seat. She looked out at the stars. For the first time, she wondered if something out there was looking back. The first journey of Earth's star destroyer had begun, and with it, the silence of space had ended. Susan woke up in her new room on the Leviathan. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she felt the soft hum of the engines under her feet. They had been traveling for 3 days now. They had gone past Mars and were now headed to the outer planets. She got dressed in her uniform and headed to the bridge. The halls of the ship were wide and bright. Crew members moved quickly, doing their jobs. Everyone seemed excited to be part of this mission. When Susan reached the bridge, Captain Lewis was already there. He sat in his chair, looking at a large screen that showed stars and planets. Good morning, XO, Lewis said when he saw her. We're about to try the new drive. Susan took her seat next to him. The new drive was the most special part of the Leviathan. It could bend space and make the ship move faster than light. No human ship had ever gone that fast before. All systems are ready, sir, said Green, the engineer. The fold space drive is at full power. Lewis nodded. Let's make history. Start the countdown. Wright, the pilot, began counting. Fold space in 3, 2, 1. Susan felt a strange feeling in her stomach. The stars on the screen seemed to stretch into lines. There was a flash of light. Then everything was normal again, but the stars looked different. Where are we? Lewis asked. Wright checked her screen. We're beyond Neptune's orbit, sir. The drive worked. We just traveled farther in seconds than any human ship has gone before. Everyone on the bridge smiled and some people clapped. It was a big moment for humans in space. Then West, the communications officer, sat up straight in her chair. Her face looked worried. Sir, I'm picking up signals. Multiple signals. They're not from Earth or any of our ships. The bridge got very quiet. Susan walked over to West's station and looked at her screen. There were many strange signals coming from different directions. Can you tell what they are? Susan asked. No, ma'am, West said. But they seem to be responding to our drive. It's like they noticed us when we used it. Lewis stood up. Put the ship on alert, not an alarm, but I want everyone ready. Susan went back to her seat. She felt both excited and scared. If the signals were from aliens, this would be the first time humans had found other life in space. "Sir," Wright said suddenly, "I'm detecting objects moving toward us. 3 of them. They're coming fast." "Show me," Lewis ordered. The main screen changed to show 3 objects moving through space. They were ships, but they didn't look like human ships. They were smooth and curved, almost like living things. They glowed with a soft blue light. "They'll reach us in about 10 minutes, Wright said. Lewis turned to Susan. "What do you think, XO? Are they friendly?" Susan thought for a moment. "They haven't attacked yet. That's a good sign. I think we should try to talk to them." Lewis nodded. "West, send a simple greeting on all channels. Let them know we come in peace." West worked at her station, sending out a message that had been prepared for first contact. It was simple words and math that any smart being should understand. T.O. Alien ships got closer. They were beautiful in a strange way. They moved so smoothly, like they were swimming through space rather than flying. "They're taking positions around us," Wright said. "One in front, one behind, one above." "Are their weapons ready?" Lewis asked. "I can't tell, sir," Wright said. "Their technology is very different from ours." The bridge was tense. No one knew what would happen next. Susan watched the alien ships on the screen. They weren't attacking, but they had surrounded the Leviathan. "Sir," West said, "they're responding to our message. I think they want to talk." "Can you put it on the main screen?" Lewis asked. "I'll try," West said. She worked at her controls. The main screen flickered. Then an image appeared. It showed a being that looked a bit like a human but was made of shifting blue light inside a clear shell. It had 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head, but it had no face that Susan could see. Everyone on the bridge stared. This was the first alien any human had ever seen. "My name is Nexus," the being said, in perfect English. "We are the Voidborn. We have been watching your world for a long time." Lewis stood up straight. "I am Captain Nathan Lewis of the Earth Defense Force ship Leviathan. We greet you in peace." The alien seemed to flicker. "Your ship should not be here. Your kind was not supposed to have this technology yet. You have broken the rules." Lewis looked confused. "I'm sorry, but we don't know about any rules. We've never met any other beings before." "That was on purpose," Nexus said. "New species are watched until they are ready. You were not ready, but you built this ship anyway." Susan stepped forward. "We didn't know anyone was watching us. We thought we were alone." "You are not alone," Nexus said. "The galaxy has many life forms. There are rules about how to join the larger community. Your ship has weapons. That concerns us." "The weapons are for defense only," Lewis said. "We mean no harm to anyone." Nexus was quiet for a moment. "We must discuss this with our leaders. You will come with us to our system. We will decide what to do about Earth." The screen went dark. The 3 alien ships moved closer to the Leviathan. "Sir," Wright said, "they're creating some kind of energy field around us. I think they're going to take us somewhere." Lewis looked at Susan. "Options, XO." Susan thought fast. "We don't know how strong they are. Fighting might be bad. I think we should go with them and learn more. But we should send a message to Earth first." Lewis nodded. "West, send a full report to Earth. Tell them everything that happened and where we're going, if we can figure that out." West worked quickly at our station. "Message sent, sir." The ship began to move. The Voidborn ships were taking them away. Through the windows, Susan saw stars stretch into lines again as they went faster than light. Susan looked around the bridge. Everyone looked worried, but also amazed. Humans had just met aliens for the first time. Nothing would be the same again. "What do you think they'll do with us?" Wright asked quietly. Susan didn't know the answer, but she knew one thing for sure. The silence of space had ended. Humanity was not alone, and now they had to learn how to deal with that fact. The trip to the Voidborn system took 3 days. During that time, the crew of the Leviathan stayed on their ship, but they could not control where it went. The 3 alien ships pulled them through space using some kind of energy field. Susan spent most of her time watching the stars and trying to figure out where they were going. She also talked a lot with Captain Lewis about what to do when they reached the Voidborn home. "We need to be careful," Susan said. "We don't know how powerful they are or what they want." Lewis nodded. "I agree. But we also need to show strength. We represent all of Earth now." On the third day they arrived, the Voidborn system had two suns.
One was yellow like Earth's sun. The other was smaller and red. There were 12 planets going around these suns. The third one looked a lot like Earth, with blue water and green land. "It's beautiful," Wright said as she looked at the screen. The
Voidborn ships took the Leviathan to the third planet. They went down into the atmosphere. Below them was a huge city. The buildings were tall and curved like the Voidborn ships. Everything glowed with soft blue light. They landed on a big platform in the middle of the city. When they touched down, the energy field around the Leviathan disappeared. "Now what?" Green asked. "Now we meet them," Lewis said. "Susan, you'll come with me. Green, you come too. Everyone else, stay here and be ready for anything." Susan, Lewis, and Green put on their formal uniforms. They went to the main door of the ship. When they opened it, they saw 3 Voidborn waiting for them on the platform. One of them was Nexus, the one they had talked to before. The other 2 were similar but smaller. "You will come with us," Nexus said. "Our leaders want to talk to you." The 3 humans followed the Voidborn down a long path. The air on this planet was thin but breathable. The gravity was a little lighter than Earth's. Susan felt like she could jump very high if she tried. They entered a large building. Inside was a big room with a round table. 5 more Voidborn sat at the table. They all glowed blue like Nexus, but they had different shapes. "Sit," Nexus said, pointing to empty chairs. The humans sat down. Susan felt nervous but tried not to show it. One of the Voidborn at the table spoke. Its voice was deeper than Nexus's voice. "I am Elder. I speak for the Voidborn High Council. You have created a problem for us." Lewis sat up straight. "We didn't mean to cause any problems. We didn't even know you existed until a few days ago." "That is part of the problem," Elder said. "Your species was under observation. You were not supposed to know about us yet. You were not supposed to have the technology to reach us yet." "Why were you watching us?" Susan asked. "We watch all developing species," Elder said. "We decide when they are ready to join the galactic community. Your species is too violent, too unpredictable, and now you have built a warship that can travel between stars." Green looked confused. "The Leviathan is for defense and exploration. We didn't build it to attack anyone." "It has weapons," another Voidborn said. "Many weapons." "Because space is dangerous," Lewis said. "We needed to be able to protect ourselves." Elder's blue light got brighter. "Now you know that you are not alone. Now you know there are other beings in space. What will you do with this knowledge? Will you build more ships with weapons? Will you try to take what isn't yours?" Susan spoke up. "We want to learn. We want to be friends with other species. We want to trade and share knowledge." "That is what all young species say," Elder said. "But history shows that is not what they do." Elder looked at the other Voidborn. They all seemed to talk without words for a minute. Then Elder turned back to the humans. "We have decided. You have 2 choices. First choice, Earth can take apart all its military ships and become a protected world under the Galactic Covenant. We will guide your development and decide what technology you can have. Second choice, Earth will be tested to see if it is a we threat. If it fails the test, it will be removed." The humans looked at each other with shock. This was not what they expected. "What kind of test?" Lewis asked. "That is not for you to know," Elder said. "But it will be fair." "And who is this Galactic Covenant?" Susan asked. "Are they here? Can we talk to them?" "The Covenant has many species," Nexus said quickly. "They are not all in this system, but we speak for them here." Something felt wrong to Susan. The way Nexus answered seemed strange, but she couldn't figure out what it was. We need to tell Earth about this, Lewis said. We need to let our leaders know what choices they have. Elder nodded. Yes, we will take you back to your planet. You will tell your leaders what we have said. They have 30 Earth days to decide. The meeting was over. The Voidborn took the humans back to their ship. Soon, the Leviathan was being pulled through space again, heading back to Earth. On the way, Susan, Lewis, and Green talked about what had happened. I don't like either choice, Green said. Give up our ships or face some kind of test that might end with Earth being destroyed. That's not a real choice. I agree, Lewis said. But what can we do? We don't know how powerful they are. They might be able to destroy Earth if they wanted to. Susan was quiet for a while. Then she said, There's something strange about all this. Did you notice how Nexus answered when I asked about the Galactic Covenant? It was too quick, like he was making it up. You think they're lying? Lewis asked. I'm not sure, Susan said. But I think we need to learn more about them before Earth makes any decision. When they got back to Earth, there was a lot of fear and anger. The news that aliens existed and were threatening Earth spread all over the world. Some people wanted to fight. Others wanted to do what the Voidborn said. Admiral Johnson called Susan to his office on the moon base. Tell me everything again, he said. Don't leave anything out. We need to figure out what to do. Susan told him all about the Voidborn and their ultimatum. She also told him about her feeling that something wasn't right. Johnson nodded. I think you're onto something, Captain Miller. I don't trust these Voidborn. We need to find out more about them and this so-called Galactic Covenant. We need to know what we're really dealing with. How do we do that? Susan asked. Johnson smiled a little. We do what humans have always done when faced with a challenge. We use our brains, we work together, and we find a way. Susan left his office feeling a little better. Earth was in danger, but humans weren't giving up. They would find a way to deal with the Voidborn no matter what it took. Susan couldn't sleep. It had been 2 weeks since they returned to Earth. The whole planet was scared. The news about aliens was everywhere. Some people wanted to fight. Others wanted to give up. Leaders from all countries were meeting every day to decide what to do. Susan was back on the Leviathan. The ship was now in orbit around Earth. She walked the quiet halls thinking about the Voidborn and their strange words. Captain Miller, a voice called. Susan turned and saw Dr. Olivia Wright walking toward her. Wright wasn't the ship's pilot anymore. Now she was working with the science team. What are you doing up so late? Susan asked. I need to show you something, Wright said. Her face looked excited. It's about the Voidborn language. They went to a small room filled with computers. Wright sat down and showed Susan her screen. I've been studying the recordings of the Voidborn talking, Wright said. Something isn't right. Look at these patterns. Susan looked at the screen. It showed sound waves and strange symbols. What am I looking at? Susan asked. The Voidborn spoke perfect English, Wright said. Too perfect. And when they talked about the Galactic Covenant, there were small changes in their speech pattern. What does that mean? Susan asked. I think they were lying, Wright said. I don't think there is a Galactic Covenant. Or if there is, it's not what they said it was. Susan felt her heart beat faster. This matched her own feelings. What else did you find? They're ships, Wright said. I've been studying the scans we took. They're not warships. They're scout ships. Fast, but not very strong. You think they're not as powerful as they want us to believe? Susan asked. I think they're scared of us, Wright said. I think they're alone, not part of some big group of aliens, and I think they're afraid of our ship. Susan thought about this. But why? The Leviathan is big, but it's just one ship. Our drive, Wright said. The way we bend space is different from theirs. They didn't expect us to make it this way. I think they want our technology. Susan went straight to Admiral Johnson with this information. He was in his office on the moon base. When she finished telling him everything, he looked out his window, at Earth for a long time. This changes things, he finally said. If the Voidborn are lying, if they're not part of some big alien group, then maybe we have more power than we thought. What should we do? Susan asked. We need more information, Johnson said. We need to know for sure, and there's only one way to get it. The next day, Johnson called a secret meeting. Only a few people were there. Susan, Captain Lewis, Dr. Wright, and leaders from the biggest countries on Earth. We have reason to believe the Voidborn are not telling the truth, Johnson said. They may not be as powerful as they claim. They may be alone, not part of a larger group. How can we know for sure? Asked the leader from America. We need to see what's really out there, Johnson said. We need to send the Leviathan on a secret mission. While we pretend to consider the Voidborn's offer, we'll explore further into space and see if we can find other aliens. That's very risky, said the leader from China. What if the Voidborn catch us? We'll tell them it's a ceremonial last voyage before we take the ship apart, Johnson said. They'll be watching us, so the Leviathan will have to go on a normal route at first. Then when they're not looking, it will change course and use the fold space drive to jump far away. Everyone was quiet thinking about this plan. I volunteer to lead the mission, Susan said. Johnson nodded. I thought you would. Captain Lewis will stay here to help with Earth's defense. You'll be in command, Captain Miller. 3 days later, the Leviathan left Earth orbit. The Voidborn had a small ship following them. They said it was to observe the ceremonial voyage. Susan sat in the captain's chair on the bridge. It felt strange to be in charge of the whole ship, but she was ready. Stay on the planned route, she told Wright, who was back as the pilot. We'll go to Jupiter first like we said we would. For 2 days they followed the route. The Voidborn ship stayed behind them, watching. Then, when they went behind Jupiter, Susan gave the order. Now, Lieutenant Wright, take us out of the system, maximum speed. Wright smiled and pressed buttons on her control panel. The stars stretched, and the Leviathan jumped far away from Earth. The ship traveled for 3 days, going places no human had been before. They saw amazing things, giant stars, beautiful gas clouds, and strange space objects. But they didn't see any aliens or alien ships. Then, on the 4th day, they found something. It was a battle. Many ships were fighting far away from any star. Some ships were big, almost as big as the Leviathan. Others were small and fast. They shot beams of light at each other. Keep us far away, Susan said. We don't want them to see us. They watched the battle from a safe distance. They recorded everything with the ship's cameras. Those ships, Wright said, pointing at one group. They looked like Voidborn ships, but bigger. And those? Susan asked, pointing at the other group. I don't know, Wright said. They're very different. They look sharp and dark. The sharp, dark ships were winning the battle. They destroyed many Voidborn ships. The few Voidborn ships that were left ran away, jumping to fold space like the Leviathan did. I think we just found out why the Voidborn are so interested in Earth, Susan said. They're running from something. Those other ships, they're losing a war. Then why threaten Earth? Asked Green, who was still the ship's engineer. Why not ask for help? Pride, maybe, Susan said. Or they don't trust us. Or they're desperate, and think they can use Earth somehow. They watched for a few more hours, making sure the battle was over. Then Susan gave the order to return to Earth. We have what we need, she said. We know the Voidborn are not all-powerful. We know they're fighting a war, and we know they're losing. The Leviathan jumped back to fold space, heading home. Susan looked at the stars stretching past the windows. She felt both worried and hopeful. Earth now knew it wasn't alone in space. There were dangers out there, but humans were good at facing dangers. They had been doing it since the beginning of time. We'll find a way, she said quietly to herself. We always do. The Leviathan returned to Earth just in time. The 30 days the Voidborn had given were almost over. Susan brought all the recordings and information they had found straight to Admiral Johnson. This changes everything, Johnson said after watching the battle recordings. The Voidborn aren't the power they pretend to be. They're running from something bigger. What should we do? Susan asked. We tell the truth, Johnson said. We show them we know. The next day, Earth's leaders called for a meeting with the Voidborn. It happened on a big ship in orbit around Earth. The Voidborn sent 3 representatives, including Nexus. Earth sent Admiral Johnson, Susan, and 5 world leaders. The 30 days are over, Nexus said. What is Earth's answer? Will you accept our protection or face the test? Admiral Johnson stood up. Before we answer, we have some questions. Who are the aliens that attacked your ships near the Horsehead Nebula? The Voidborn froze. Their blue light flickered. What are you talking about? Nexus asked, but his voice sounded different. We saw the battle, Susan said. We saw your ships losing to the dark sharp ships. We know you're at war. We know you're running. That's impossible, another Voidborn said. You couldn't have gone that far. Our fold space drive is better than you thought, Johnson said. Now tell us the truth. There is no galactic covenant, is there? It's just you running from something stronger. The Voidborn were quiet for a long time. Then Nexus spoke. Yes, we are alone. The ones you saw are called the Harvesters. They destroy worlds and take all resources. They have chased us for centuries. We have nowhere left to go. So you came to Earth, Susan said. You wanted our drive technology. You wanted to hide here. We need your help, Nexus admitted. The Harvesters will find this system eventually. With your technology and our knowledge, we might survive. You could have just asked, Johnson said. Humans help those in need. But we don't respond well to threats. We've learned that other species rarely help without being forced, Nexus said. We couldn't take the risk. Well, now we know the truth, Johnson said. And now we have a real choice to make. The meeting ended with no clear answer. The Earth leaders went back to discuss what to do. The Voidborn returned to their ships to wait. 2 days later, Susan was called to a secret meeting on the moon base. Admiral Johnson was there with Captain Lewis and leaders from the biggest Earth countries. We've made a decision, Johnson said. We won't surrender our ships as the Voidborn demanded, but we also won't turn them away. Earth has never backed down from a fight, especially when the fate of all people is at stake. What will we do? Susan asked. We'll build more ships like the Leviathan, Johnson said. We've already started in secret. 5 more are almost ready. They're smaller but still powerful, and we'll work with the Voidborn to prepare for the Harvesters. How do we know we can trust them now? Lewis asked. We don't, Johnson admitted. But we don't have much choice. The Harvesters are coming either way. Better to have the Voidborn with us than against us. The next day, Earth gave its answer to the Voidborn. Admiral Johnson spoke for all humans. Earth will not dismantle its ships, he said firmly. But we offer something else. An alliance. We will help you fight the Harvesters. We will share our fold space technology. In return, you will share your knowledge of space and other technologies with us. The Voidborn were surprised. They talked among themselves for a while. Then Nexus spoke. We accept your offer. We didn't think humans would be so forgiving. We're not doing this just for you, Johnson said. The Harvesters are a threat to Earth too. We protect our own. Over the next month, humans and Voidborn worked together. The Voidborn shared their knowledge of space. Humans shared their drive technology. 5 new ships joined the Leviathan in Earth orbit. They were called the Defenders. Each one was about half the size of the Leviathan, but still powerful. Susan was put in charge of the new Earth fleet. She worked hard to train the crews and prepare the ships. The Voidborn thought the Harvesters might find Earth within a year. Then, much sooner than anyone expected, a warning came from a Voidborn scout ship. 20 Harvester ships had entered the solar system. They would reach Earth in 3 days. They must have followed our energy trail when we returned from our mission, Susan said. They're here because of us. We're not ready, Johnson said. The fleet is trained, but we needed more time. Ready or not, they're coming, Lewis said. We fight with what we have. Earth prepared for battle. The 6 human ships and 12 Voidborn ships took position between Earth and the coming Harvesters. Susan was in command of the Leviathan, which would lead the fleet. On the day of the battle, Susan stood on the bridge of her ship. She looked at the screens showing Earth behind them and the darkness of space ahead. Soon that darkness would be filled with enemy ships. "All ships report ready," West said from her communication station. Susan nodded. "Tell them to hold position." We let the harvesters come to us. "The void-born ships are in position too," West added. Susan looked around the bridge. Everyone was nervous but ready. They had trained for this moment. They would protect Earth or die trying. "First contacts on long-range sensors," Wright said, from the pilot's seat. "They'll be in visual range in 10 minutes. Susan took a deep breath. "Send a message to all ships. Tell them, remember what we're fighting for. Remember everyone on that blue planet behind us. We are the first line of defense, and we will not fail." The minutes passed slowly. Then the enemy ships came into view. They were black and sharp, like knives cutting through space. They moved in a tight group heading straight for Earth. "They're scanning us," Green said from his engineering station. "They know we're here." "Good," Susan said. "Let them come. Let them see what happens when they threaten our home." She sat tall in the captain's chair. The Leviathan was ready. Earth was ready. The silence of space had ended forever, replaced by the sounds of ships and the voices of different species. And now it would hear the sound of humans defending their world. "All weapons ready," Susan said calmly. "Prepare to fire on my command." The battle for Earth was about to begin.